Praise the Lord. My name is Esther Wambia. I love the Lord as my personal savior. I thank God for giving me an opportunity to be here today and to discuss about the family program, about how family is supposed to do and to live and to continue achieving their intimacy. We have been actually discussing much about how to get intimate with your spouse, and we've talked so many things about intimacy, the reasons why we cannot achieve intimacy, and the reasons and how to achieve intimacy. And today I want us to look at the challenges that cause the marriage not to be the way God intended. There are challenges in our marriages that causes us not to achieve that which God intended for a marriage to become. And one of the things that makes us not to achieve our relationships, one of the challenges is that the lack of the lordship of Christ. Christ, when he becomes the Lord of your life, all things changes. Actually, he changes the course of events and the course of things, and that's the reason why. When we go back to Genesis, we find that God is the one who started the marriage. Actually, he was the initiator and he was the creator. And actually, he realized the reason why he had to do marriage. It's because there was loneliness in the Garden of Eden as pertains to the man. And because of that loneliness, God said it is not good for man to be alone. And for that reason, because God intended that man may not be alone, he created a helpmate. And for that reason, God actually being the initiator of marriage, he is the one who is supposed to be involved right into the program. The lordship of Jesus Christ is key in any marriage. So every married person should realize the importance of God in his marriage. And lack of that God in that marriage is the beginning of challenges. You realize that when the marriage began in the Garden of Eden, God used to visit literally every single day. The Bible records that in the cool of the day, God used to visit Adam. And they would chat and they would talk and they would probably, we are not told so much. But what I know is that when you become a friend of somebody, there is so much more than just meeting. So when God would come to the Garden of Eden to meet Adam, they would talk and actually that's the reason why God realized the loneliness of Adam. Otherwise, if they were not that close, God would not have realized that Adam is alone and is so lonely. And so that makes it possible for God to continue meeting the challenges that Adam had. That was just trying to show us that God realizes our challenges when we become a friend of God, and he's able to make us achieve, or rather, he's able to give us the modalities of solving our problems. And one of the challenges that came out so clearly is the loneliness in the Garden of Eden. And God created Adam out of Eve. And for that reason, God is part and parcel of that marriage. Actually, he was a part. There were three. It was a three-stone kind of a relationship where God was there in the first one, the first stone, the second stone was Adam, and the third one. And that is those three stones actually are the ones that causes anything to balance. So even women would tell us that when they want to cook, if they want to have the full, the sufuria balance or the saucepan balance on the fire, they have to have three stones. So those three pillars in marriage, actually that was there in the beginning. God intended that marriage should have three pillars. And these three pillars is God, the husband, and the wife. And that made a relationship that God was so much happy about. He kept on coming to the Garden of Eden to have time with them, to chat with them, and even to solve issues with them. And it came a time when there was fall. When Adam and Eve fell he fell in sin, and after the fall, everything changed. The three pillar kind of foundation was destroyed. And when that three pillar was destroyed, it became the problem began. And one of the things that has come out so clearly that we can be able to see is that when Adam was asked why he had sinned, he was very quick to shift the blame to Eve. You know, he was not ready to take the blame. He was ready to shift that blame. He was ready to start accusations, you know. And when sin comes into man, then we don't take responsibility. We start accusing others. We start telling others the reason why things are not working. And even in marriage, actually, when we remove God in the equation, that means we are not going to take responsibility as husband and wife. We are going to continue accusing one another. And for that reason, we can see now Eve did not started by accusing, Adam started accusing Eve over the mistakes that he had made. You know, he had eaten the fruit, yes. Well, Eve had told him to how sweet the fruit was. But the truth of the matter is, it was upon Adam to make a choice. It was Adam to make a decision. So in our marriages, when we make a decision, we should be able to realize that whatever decision we make without God, that decision is bound to come back and haunt us. So we see that even death started when there was a lot of accusation. So we can see that the lordship of God had been removed from the equation after the fall. And for that reason, we see now the family problem coming in. So we see Adam shifting the blame to Eve. So you can imagine that marriage where nobody was taking responsibility, you know, where the man who is supposed to be the head does not take responsibility and try to get a solution to the problems that are in that marriage. But he's shifting the challenges or the problems to the woman who is actually not the one to make a decision. So in many marriages, we find that instead of taking the challenge as it comes and try to get a solution to it, we tend to move away from what is ailing us and start shifting that problem to others. And especially when a man starts shifting the problem to a woman, then that is the beginning of the falling of that marriage, because you realize that there are so many men who marry second wives, for example. And when you ask this man, why did you decide to get another woman? Why did you have to marry another woman? So they will tell you that because my wife failed, that is why I married another woman. And then you realize when they thought they were solving a problem, they are increasing that problem, because you marry a woman who may not have the same challenges that the other one has, but has another challenge that the other one did not have. So it is easier for you to sort out the challenge that is one than getting another challenge to make it two. And then you see, this problem did not end with Adam and Eve. It is spread over to the children. Because the fall of man, when the lordship of God moved out of that family, then the problem now spread to the children. And that is where we see now. You see now, when it came now to giving sacrifices, we realize that people try to go back to God, you know, on individual level. Because now we can see Abel trying to go back to God in his own way. And then Cain tried to go to God in his own way. And we realize that Cain did not understand the God he was serving, and that is the reason why instead of looking at how he can please God, he was getting lost. He was getting consumed by the fact that Abel's sacrifice seemed to be more appealing to God than his, and we see the intention probably of giving that sacrifice to God from Cain was not intentional. It was not from the heart. He was maybe doing it because Abel was doing it, or because there was God somewhere where he could not understand. And so when it came to giving sacrifice, you know, Abel had known God on a personal level, on an individual level, and he had decided to please God on his own way. But Cain had not decided on God. And so when it came to sacrifice, Cain took a sacrifice that was appealing because God looked at the heart of Abel. Took the sacrifice that was appealing because God looked at the heart of Abel. And the heart of Abel seemed to be pleasing to God, and the intention was right, and everything about the sacrifice was good. But when we look at the way Cain presented his sacrifice, we tend to look at the heart. Probably the heart was not really clean. It was not. He was not doing it from the heart, but he was doing it so that he can be seen. And you know, when you do something for other people to see, it may not be appealing to God. And so that's the reason why we can see God rejecting his sacrifice. And this one was emanated from the fall of man. When the parents fell, then the sin of disobedience spread through and it got to the children. So we see that if we have to succeed as a family, one of the things that we must accept, and one of the things that we must make a decision on, is that we are going to follow God as on an individual level. Me, I will purpose to walk with God. My husband will purpose to walk with God. And when God saturates our hearts and our minds and in our space, then that means the presence of God would not depart from our presence. And that would make us to make the right decisions upon each other. And that would make us to stop being selfish. You know, that would make us not to go seeking for other people, for each other's throat, and we shall not go against each other like Cain did. You know, Cain went against, or rather he killed the brother because he discovered that he was not appealing and that he would not want to take it lying down. You know, sometimes some people don't want to take some of these challenges lying down. You know, somebody says, I am this, I am that. And so for that reason, why should this one happen to this one and not to me? And this competition, this kind of competition is found in the families. Only when Jesus becomes the Lord of our family is when we get healed, is when we are able to go the right direction. And for that reason, the first challenge is the Lordship of Christ. We must understand that we must allow Jesus to be the Lord of our family, or rather of my life. And the thing that happens when after the fall, you know what happened is that Jesus was dethroned. God was dethroned. He was taken out from his throne, and you know, he was in the hearts of Adam and Eve. And after the fall, other things, you know, lust, selfishness, and all those things came right into their hearts. And for that reason, when God moved away, other things came. And when God is not in the center of our marriage, when he is not the Lord in our lives, that means at the throne of our hearts, there's something much more than what we think. And those things that actually sit on the thrones of our hearts are the things that drive us. And so when we dethrone God because of selfishness, or because of we have kind of failed, or we have not put God first, then that means that marriage will have so many challenges. That self-interest is what takes away God's presence in our lives. Where it is me and myself. It is always myself. It's always me. So you will always seek your relationship with your spouse basing on what it is that you know, the spouse is giving you. What is it that you are getting from your spouse? It is not what you are giving. You know, when the fall of man came, it happened that we became now kind of self-centered, and when we dethroned God, then we appeared to do things for our own way. So selfishness, when it came in, then now it's no longer God, it's no longer my spouse, it's no longer my family, it is about myself. So everything that I seek from my spouse is self-satisfaction. So I want to be self-satisfied. I want to be satisfied in the way that I feel that things are working and tilting in my favor. So anything that I'm supposed to give, I don't observe that. I only observe that which is coming in. And because of that selfish kind of spirit, it makes the marriage not to work. We are not able to achieve that kind of happiness, you know, that God intended for marriage to be. But when God is in the throne, and in the throne of our hearts, and he's in the equation, he's one of the pillars in our marriages, then we can be so sure that things are going to work. And that is why the Bible records in Ephesians 5:21 that be subject to one another, and out of reference of God. We are supposed to be subject to each other. I'm supposed to be subject to my husband. He's supposed to be subject to me. So whatever I do and whatever he does, he should factor me first. You know, when God is part and parcel of your marriage, then you factor in first that person. You factor in that spouse. You factor in that friend, because as I said earlier, your spouse is supposed to be actually your friend. So you factor him first before you make any kind of decision. And that can only happen when God is part and parcel of that marriage. So number 2, it is self-centeredness. When Jesus left the throne of people's hearts, and especially in the Garden of Eden, people became self-centered, you know, that it is no longer us as a team. You know, initially, there was a lot of loneliness in this man called Adam, that when God created Eve for him, he was so excited that he said, this is a bone of my bone and this is a flesh of my flesh. and he was very excited. And he gave the name, actually, a woman to this woman. He gave her a name, because he was so excited and he was so happy. And he felt that his needs have been met. And actually, when he opened his eyes, all he could say is that these are bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Come to think about it, when now the fall came and he says, this woman you gave me, he could not even refer to him as anything else. He could not even think about bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Actually, to him, she was a disaster. She's the one who brought problems into the Garden of Eden. And that is why when God asked what happened, Abraham, why are you hiding? Instead of, have you sinned? Have you eaten the fruit? Instead of saying, yes, God, I ate the fruit and I sinned against you, God, forgive me, and blah, blah, blah. So he looked at the woman and he was not able to see the bone of his bone and the flesh of his flesh. He was just seeing a woman who brought sin, And he's told God, God, this is the woman. The woman you gave me actually is a problem. And you see, when God is not in the marriage, many times what we see problems that are caused by our spouses. We do not see good things about, actually, come to think about the day you are actually quoting that man and that woman. You could not even sleep. You would think about this man 24/7, and you'd even... And the truth of the matter is, because I'm married, I know what it feels when you're courting. When you're courting a person you really love, and you really love this man with the heart and mind and flesh. Actually, you love this man in truth. And the man equally does the same. And that is why the man would want, in that relationship, you want to be together almost throughout. Why? Because this is the bone of your bone and this is the flesh of your flesh. But when you start living together and God seems not to be in this marriage, what happens is you start not seeing now the love that you had for this person, but you start seeing disaster, you start seeing problems. You start feeling that all what I'm going through is because this man, or is because of this woman. And that is why you find that many times, come to the discussion of spouses, you find that every person has a reason to accuse the spouse. Oh, this man doesn't think. Oh, this man is doing nothing about this situation. Oh, this man, blah, blah, blah. And the man is always saying, this woman is holding me, that I wanted to do this, I'm not able to do this because this woman is not giving me a chance. Or this woman is really nagging me. He does not give me space. You see, there's a lot of things going on in the family. And this all happens is because God is not in the throne. But when we allow God to be part and parcel of this marriage, what happens is that you look at everything in terms of God has not given us that time to do it. We've not reached the time to do it. You are like, okay, this thing is supposed to be done. But when God gives us an opportunity, when God gives us money, when God, allows us, we shall do it. So you start looking at it in terms of God's time, God's time actually is the best. So you look at the reason why you have not been able to achieve is because God has not, worked towards it. He has not given you that opportunity to get there. So, but when we start accusing each other, that is self-centeredness. I am always trying to show that I'm always good. And the reason why we are failing is my spouse. There is always somebody who is trying to look or to appear like is not part of the failure. Even Adam tried not to appear part of the failure. Actually, Adam told God himself, in black and white, I am not the failure. Eve is the failure. She is the one who gave me the fruit. You would wonder whether she forced the fruit into the mouth. Adam had a decision to make. He could have decided, I am not going to eat this fruit. You can bring the fruit, but I decided not to eat. But Adam ate the fruit. He had the power to make a decision. So even us, as couples, or rather as spouses, we are supposed to make a decision to do what is right. We are not supposed to be selfish to the extent that we are always looking at our spouses as the hindrance to our progress. Many times we look at our spouses as a hindrance to our progress. And because of that, you find that you are not able to, you are not happy in your marriage. You try so much to make things work, but they are not working. Why? Because besides working hard on making it work, you are also working hard to make it not work. The moment you start accusing somebody and making the person look like it's a failure, let me tell you, it will always come back to you. Because even the effort and the self-esteem that would have made this person to start craving and working very hard would come down. Because when you accuse somebody, the self-esteem of this person comes down. And he starts seeing whatever the effort he does or whatever the effort he tries to add does not count. Nobody sees that effort. So what I'm saying is that the reason why we do not make it as a couple, those are some of the reasons why we are not making it, the reasons why we are not happy in our marriages, as God intended us to be. We are supposed to enjoy every bit of us living together. It's not just about getting children. It's not just about taking them to school. It's not about just bringing the wajukus. But there is so much more than just that. We are supposed to be happy in our marriages. For us to be happy and to be fulfilled in our marriages, we are supposed to look at ourselves the way God looks at us. And God must be in the present. Must be present. And also we must eliminate that self-centeredness. So I'll continue from there. We shall continue learning how we can be able to overcome the challenges that come in the marriage that would make us not to be fulfilled. You can subscribe in YouTube. You can also find me in TikTok, and so you can be able to support this program in the Ongate TV. Let us move the same direction. God bless you so much. Amen.